Zaxara the Exemplary is the first commander to be introduced on MTG Burgeoning's Build a Deck Tuesdays. Last week, and you can click on the link below, we introduced Zaxara as our commander, and we also talked about the first 10 cards that were going to be included. In our video today, we continue with building Zaxara the Exemplary by adding the next 10 cards. Folks, welcome back. MTG Burgeoning here, and thank you for coming back to Build a Deck Tuesdays. And here we have Zaxara the Exemplary, and this is video 2. So what we're going to do is we're going to add 10 cards to our 99, similar to what we did in our last video. So for a quick review, Zaxara is our commander, and here were the first 10 cards that we introduced to the deck real quickly. Unbound Flourishing, Doubling Season, Branching Evolution, Primeval Bounty, Simic Ascendancy, Selvala Heart of the Wilds, Pemin's Aura, Kruphix God of Horizons, Corpsejack Menace, and Retribution of the Ancients. So when we left off last time, the next goal for the channel was to start collecting a bunch of X spells to include into this deck, because with Zaxara the Exemplary's X ability, we want to take advantage of that by trying to include as many reasonable X spells as we possibly can. We can do this by leaving comments below our YouTube video, take some comments from the Zaxara the Exemplary MTG Burgeoning page on tappedout.net. So, after perusing a total of 0 comments on both sides of Medium, not a problem, we're still building. It's Build a Deck Tuesday, so we build a fan base at the same time. I decided to pick the first 10 X spells myself. So, here are the first 10 X spells to include in Zaxara the Exemplary EDH Commander deck. These are cards 11 through 20 in the 99. Number 11, Villainous Wealth. Villainous Wealth is a sorcery that's X and Assault Eye, and target opponent exiles the top X cards of their library. We may cast any number of spells with converted mana cost X or less from among them without paying their mana costs. We're generating lots of mana. We were looking for an X spell. Both boxes are checked with Villainous Wealth, plus we add a very powerful win condition. Particularly if we pair this with an Unbound Flourishing. How about casting a bunch of spells from multiple opponents' libraries? Villainous Wealth, X spell number 1. All right, so moving up next is Finale of Revelation. We draw X cards, and if X is 10 or more, instead we shuffle our graveyard into our library, draw X cards, untap up to 5 lands, and we have no maximum hand size for the rest of the game. And then we exile Finale of Revelation. X spell checks the box, draws us cards, is definitely going to have a place in Zaxara the Exemplary. And again, there's no coincidence that Unbound Flourishing was the first card to include in the 99. Every time we cast an X spell, we're copying it if it's a sorcery or an instant. So let's copy Finale of Revelation twice. Oh, baby. Finale of Revelation is X spell number 2. Next up, returning to the theme of win conditions, we have Torment of Hailfire. This rare from Hour of Devastation says to repeat the following process X times. Each opponent loses 3 life unless that player sacrifices a non-land permanent or discards a card. This is a win condition all the way through. It's an X spell, checks the box of an X spell, works fantastic with Unbound Flourishing, and we're going to generate a ton of mana, so this is another win condition. X spell number 3. Okay, and here we're going to move to number 4, and it's our first X spell as a creature. And that's going to be what can only be considered as the greatest Hydra ever printed to this date, Hydroid Crisis. When we cast the spell, we gain half X life and draw half X cards. We round down each time. So let's stop right there just to examine this ability a little bit further. Even if this spell is countered, we still gain the life and we still draw the cards. And if we have Unbound Flourishing, right over here, if we have Unbound Flourishing on the battlefield under our control when we cast Hydroid Crisis, that X life and that X cards is no longer halved, it's whatever we put into it. So for example, if X is 6, we would draw 3 cards and gain 3 life. But with Unbound Flourishing, if we pay 6, the X doubles to 12, and then we draw 6 and gain 6. In addition, it enters the battlefield with those many +1/+1 counters, and it has flying and trample. Double evasion, card draw, life gain. This is the ultimate X spell for a creature in our Zaxara the Exemplary deck. And it is X spell number 4. Alright, so we have a theme going here. We've got a win condition, X spell. Win condition, X spell. Let me reframe that again. They're all X spells. Win condition, card draw. Win condition, card draw, plus some other things. So, on theme, let's go right back to win condition. Exsanguinate. The text is simplistic. There's no hurdles to jump. There's no ropes to climb. There's no permanents that have to be sacrificed or cards discarded. It's just a flat out, each opponent loses X life. We gain life equal to the life lost this way. Straightforward, to the point, X spell, win condition, boxes checked, number 5. Alright, here we go. X creature spell number 2. Walking Ballista. Walking Ballista enters the battlefield with X +1/+1 counters on it. We can tap 4 to put a +1/+1 counter on it, and we can remove a +1/+1 counter from Walking Ballista to deal 1 damage to target creature player, 1 damage to any target. So with Unbound Flourishing, or any of the other numerous +1/+1 counter doublers we have throughout the deck already in our first 15 cards, clearly those are more in the first 10, Walking Ballista can act as a win condition. The XX can be doubled with Unbound Flourishing. If X is 5 in the presence of Unbound Flourishing on the battlefield under our control, then it turns out to be a 10/10. Comes into play with 10 +1/+1 counters, and we don't have to do anything to remove a +1/+1 counter. We just do it. There's no tapping, there's no mana. We just do it. We get this big enough, it can be a win condition and an absolute deterrent for any opponent to remove it, because if someone does, they're going to take a bunch of points of damage right to the face. Walking Ballista is number 6. Number 7, we foray into a bit of ramp. And it's Animist's Awakening. We reveal the top X cards of our library, and we put all land cards from among them onto the battlefield tapped, and the rest on the bottom of our library in a random order. This spell has the spell mastery mechanic, so if there are 2 or more instant and or sorcery cards in our graveyard, we untap those lands. It's very likely that by the time we cast this, there's going to be more than 2 instant or sorcery spells in our graveyard. So we can just assume that the spell mastery ability is going to trigger on the spell, and those lands are going to come into play tap, but then we're going to untap them. Amazing. Think about this paired with Unbound Flourishing. If X is 5, suddenly X is 10, and we're revealing 10 cards, putting all lands into play, and most likely being able to have those come into play tapped, but then untapped because of the spell mastery mechanic. Animist's Awakening checks the boxes for ramp. and as an X spell, and it definitely warrants its inclusion in Zaxara the Exemplary. All right, we're down to 3 cards, and now it's time for a removal spell. Even though in some ways we can count Torment of Hailfire and Walking Ballista as removal spells, this one hits the nose of removal spell a lot more square to the proboscis, and that is the underplayed and underutilized Curse of the Swine. Let's just think about this for a second. This is a blue spell that's going to exile X target creatures. Let that sink in for a moment. This is a blue spell that's going to exile creatures. For each creature exiled this way, its controller puts a 2/2 green boar creature token onto the battlefield. So even if we target 5 creatures, as long as we still have one of them as a legal target, Curse of the Swine is going to resolve. Why is this not played more? I mean, how many creatures in our format are so much more formidable than a 2/2 green boar creature token? And what if we have what if we have Unbound Flourishing on the battlefield too? We're going to copy this and we could potentially wipe the board and just put a bunch of 2/2 creature tokens. Curse of the Swine, criminally underplayed. Let's get it in play, baby. Let's do it. All right, number 9. We return to our creature spells. Voracious Hydra. This enters the battlefield with X+1/+1 counters on it, like almost all Hydras do. However, when it enters the battlefield, we have a couple of modes from which to choose. We can choose to either double the number of +1/+1 counters on Voracious Hydra, or it can enter the battlefield and fight target creature we don't control. Removal, check. Beater, check. Expel, check. Voracious Hydra, Expel number 9. And that brings us to our final Expel of this video. And that is going to be some more card draw. And that's going to be Stroke of Genius. For X, 2 in the blue, target player draws X cards. So let's take a moment here to just talk about some similarities between this spell, Pull from Tomorrow, and Blue Sun's Zenith. Now, Pull for Tomorrow is X and 2 blue. So technically, Pull for Tomorrow has a smaller converted mana cost. However, Pull from Tomorrow makes us discard a card. So we net the same number of cards whether we cast Stroke of Genius or Pull from Tomorrow. Additionally, Blue Sun's Zenith is triple blue and X. Now, we're playing Sultai, so we got 3 colors, so we should be okay to pull off a triple mana symbol color in one of our spells, but that's not a sure thing. Color screw happens, and triple blue, well, that's a little intimidating at times. I mean, it's nice to be able to reuse the spell by shuffling it back into our graveyard, but I keep coming back to that triple blue. So amongst those 3 spells, Stroke of Genius is the safer play. As a bonus, the text on Stroke of Genius says target player draws X cards. So with some creativity under the right circumstances in our deck, as we're trying to create this big mana, cast big X spells deck, we could technically have an opponent draw X cards where X is greater than the number of cards in their library and have an opponent get killed that way. So because of that added versatility, Stroke of Genius breaks the tie amongst Pull from Tomorrow and Blue Sun Zenith. And that is X spell number 10. So we got 10 X spells in. Let's do another 10. MTG Burgeoning followers and Burgeonites and subscribers and hopefully soon to be subscribers, leave me a comment below. What are some X spells you want to see in this Zaxara the Exemplary build? Help me build this deck. MTG Burgeoning, out. Want to become a Pack Wars combatant? 4 easy steps. Step number 1. Click on the link below in the description or go to www.buymeacoffee.com patreon.com/MTG Burgeoning. Step number 2, select either membership or support. Membership will enroll you into Pack Wars for $5 each month. Support will cost $5 for 1 month. Step number 3, complete payment information. The name you use will appear on the site. Use your real name, use your YouTube handle, or use no name at all and be anonymous. Be sure to include your email address in the information. Step number 4, most importantly, prepare for war.